Our in the hoop project today is a very simple stitch out. As a matter of fact, the bear pattern is only 3 steps. So we will cover how easy it will be to stitch out this absolutely adorable in the hoop stuffed bear. However, we're going to go and delve a little bit deeper into how to make the bear into a birth stats bear. So as you see with this particular bear, he has the name, he has the ounces and pounds on him, and the date of birth for this particular child. But we are also going to show how to customize the bear, even with just a name, with the machine only. You don't have to have embroidery software in order to customize this pattern with just the name, and we'll show you step by step how to do that. So hang out with me today as we go through the steps on how you can create your own customized in the hoop birth announcement teddy bear. Let me go over what we need to get started with this particular project. Of course, we will need our hoop. We also need our tearaway stabilizer. So this is like a medium weight tearaway stabilizer. Then we need 2 pieces of flannel that are 6 inches by 6 inches at least. Then we want to use a little bit of spray adhesive. It's not necessary, but it is helpful. Then we want our threads. So because this bear is going to be pink, I have pink up here. We need black for the highlights, and I have a tan as well for the bear's face. We need scissors so that we can cut the bear out once we're done with it. You'll also need some teeny trim scissors so that you can trim your jump stitches with the machine. We need something to help us turn this thing inside out. Now keep in mind, this pattern does go up to a 10-inch size bear on larger machines, but she was kind enough to make a pattern that fits the 4x4 machines so that you could make a smaller version of the bear. So it is tedious to turn it inside out, but it can be done. So let's go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is put a little bit of spray adhesive on the back side of our first piece of fabric. Now her pattern, she also has a cat. She has the bear, which is what we're doing today. She has an owl, which is fairly easy to do, and she has a bunny rabbit. Now the bunny rabbit, I did not have success with turning the 4x4 size bunny rabbit because he was just too small. The hole to turn him was just entirely too small, and I struggled with him. So the bunny rabbit I wouldn't do in size 4x4, but the teddy bear, the cat, and the owl, you should be cool doing the 4x4 version of this. Now keep in mind, this project, in order to turn it, you're going to have a pretty good arthritis day. All right, I'm just warning you ahead of time, because you're going to have fine motor movement with your fingers to get it to turn inside out. So I've had my Tylenol for the day, so I'm great to go. All right, so I'm going to move this out of the way. Now all I did again was spray the back of the first layer with a little light spray adhesive and attached it to the tearaway. What I'm going to do is go ahead and hoop this together. All right, so you can float this, but what I found is if you float it, the stitching stretches a little bit, and so the outline of the bear's nose doesn't line up perfectly if you do it that way. So to make sure that my fabric doesn't distort, I'm going to go ahead and hoop it. All right, and here we are. I'm going to make sure that we're good and snug in the hoop. There's a little bit of wrinkling there, not anything major at all. So let us go ahead and put this on the hoop, on the machine rather. So we have it on the machine. Our next step is going to be to pull up the pattern. All right, so we are going to do the bare 4x4 version. Now, as I showed in the outset, you can customize these with a name, baby's birth stat, stuff like that. Now, the easiest way to accomplish that is by using an embroidery editing program to add the lettering to the existing pattern. So Sew What Pro, which is a very affordable embroidery editing program, you can use that to download and open the pattern. And once you have the pattern open on your desktop in Sew What Pro, all you have to do is type in the letters or add your letters to the pattern and then line it up within the pattern. And then you want to make sure that the outline of the bear is the last step after your lettering. So Sew What Pro makes it easier to accomplish that. However, you can customize this bear by adding a name straight from the machine without any software whatsoever. And we're going to do that with this particular bear. All right, so we have the fabric here. So let's go ahead and pull up the pattern. And we're doing the bear. And we have 3 steps, as you see with this particular pattern: his nose, ears, and paws, and then the filling for his nose and his eyes. And then after that, we have his outline. Okay, and those are the steps that we're going to take. Now, what we're going to do is do step 1 and 2, and then we're going to come back out of the pattern and add the lettering. So I'll show you that when we get to that step. So let's go back to step number 1, and we'll go ahead and let that stitch out. But first, I want to change my thread. So I don't want it to be pink for the nose and the ears. So we're going to change this to this tan color. You want to make sure when you're threading your machine that you thread it through all of the 6 steps. All right, and we have our white bobbin in. The bobbin in this instance doesn't matter what color it is because the bobbin thread will not be seen. So let's get started with the first step. So that is the end of step 1, and as you see, there are quite a few jump stitches on here, and my thread didn't trim the way it was supposed to, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that with my trimming scissors. And I trim all of these so that they're not in the way when it's time to do the black. And this is what we have so far. So let's go ahead and do the rest. Now, as you can see right there with the nose, how there's some slight gapping with the outline around the nose and the fill on the inside. And that's due to the stretching of the fabric because it's not hooped super snug. So there was going to be some gapping there. All right, let's change our thread because I'm not going to use the tan. We're going to now switch to our black thread. And for the customization, to make it easier for you guys to see it, I'm going to leave the thread black. All right, time to stitch his nose. All right, so it is trying to get in position to stitch the outline, which is the final step, but we're not going to do the outline just yet. All right, so what I'm going to do is back out of this pattern. And now I'm back to the computer sent over file screen. So let's back out of that as well, and we'll go to our home page. Now, meanwhile, I'm going to take this off just to show you where we are with that. Such a adorable little face right here on our hoop. I'm going to go ahead and trim this because it didn't trim like it was supposed to, and get this jump stitch out of the way and this jump stitch out of the way. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, I see one more. I'm going to trim this too. Let's put him back on. Now, when you are at the home screen, the needle position on the hoop automatically goes back to the center, and that's where we want to be for this next step. So let's choose our lettering and put a name on here, and I'm just going to go with the simple font, and I'm going to choose small because this is 4x4. The bear is relatively small, so you want the smallest letters that they have, and we're going to put a name. So let us go with Claire, if it'll fit, and it should. So the way you can tell to make sure that that name will work, you can go to adjust and then go to layout, and you'll see the size and how small it is because the bear takes up pretty much this entire square. But right here you see the name is right there in the middle of the chest. Now you can move it down some, and you don't have to move it down very far, or you could leave it where it was, which I'm going to put it almost back where it was. And now at this point, since we have that and we have the bear ready and our light is green, we're going to go ahead and stitch out the name. The one thing I do like about the install fonts on this machine is they are very lightweight and easy, really quick to stitch out. Whereas a lot of times when you get a font that someone has digitized, it can be a little stitch heavy, so to speak, even with the smaller fonts. So it takes it a little bit longer for it to stitch out. So that's one plus I do like about the fonts that come pre-installed with this machine. Right. So it is done. Now I want to point your attention to something that you will need to keep in mind when you're personalizing this with the fonts from the machine. Now we typed out Claire, C-L-A-I-R-E. Now notice here in the adjustment screen where you go to make your adjustments, there's measurements right here. So this tells you that up and down it's 0.35 tall, And then right here it's showing 1.42 wide, and then here is telling you where your position is. So we were side to side, dead center is where this name was, and then we dropped it down 0.04 clicks in order to put the name right there. So if you go to customize another name with the exact same pattern but a different name, you can make sure that your patterns line up the same, your names line up the same, by making sure that this 0.04, that you adjust it down to 0.04 with your next few patterns in succession, and that way you know it's going to be lined up where it's supposed to be. Now the other thing you want to keep in mind is this number here, the 1.42. And the reason why that number is important is because it's telling you how wide this name is. So what we're going to do after the last stitch out of our bear, we're going to measure where this name is at 0.04, and we're going to see how wide that area of the bear is, so that the next time you go to type in a name, say for instance, if that area of the bear is 1.50 wide, then you know a name too much larger than this won't fit. So I hope that makes sense, and I'll show you again once we stitch out the last step of the bear and explain it a little more in detail with the ruler so that you can see what I'm talking about. But at this point, the name is done, the name is stitched out. That's our step before we completely finish the bear. So everything on the front of the bear at this point is done. So what we want to do is finish him off and put his back on him. So I have the other layer right here, and we're going to lay this face down on the top of this now that the name is done. And I wanted to make sure that this stitch was trimmed, and it wasn't, so let's trim that. And we want to back out of the name because we're done with this, and we're going to go back to our bear pattern. So we've done step 1, we've done step 2, so we want to get to step 3. So to do that, hit adjust, hit the plus and minus beside the needle, and we want to skip color stops, not stitches. So let's go 1, 2, and now we're on step 3. All right, it says red, but we're going to ignore that, and we're actually, I was going to change the color to 1 to match the fabric, but I'm going to leave it black so that you guys can see the outline and how it stitches. So let's go ahead and put the back of the bear on top. So this is the absolute last stitch to take place. So if you customize and want to put a name, don't do this first and then try to put the name, then you'll stitch your bear closed. This is the absolute last step on all of the patterns, the owl, the cat, the bear, and the rabbit, no matter which size pattern you choose. All right, so I'm going to pull some more of this thread so that it doesn't come loose on me. I'm going to drop my foot, and we're going to stitch out that last step, step number 3. Alrighty, my dears, our embroidery part of this project is done. So let me get that trimmed. We'll lift our foot. Now let's get back to the name and explain to you a little bit more in detail what I meant. All right, so we're finished sewing. I'm going to take this off and I'm going to back out. And what I'm going to do is we're going to type that name one more time. CL, whoops, nope. Sorry, we need to make it small. The smallest size. All right, so again, we're going to hit adjust and we're going to hit layout. Now remember what position the needle needed to be up and down to make sure that our second bear name is going to be in the exact same position. It was 0.04. So let's move it down, and it goes in increments of 2. So you hit it twice and now it's at 0.04. And again, our measurement is 1.42 inches. All right, so, and this tells you that it's set for inches. If it's set in millimeters, then you can go into the menu settings and change that. You may have to consult your manual for that. So let me, reach over for the tape measure, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So at 0.04, I don't know if you can barely make out where the name is right in this area across the chest. And so you definitely don't want your embroidery of the name to go beyond these border stitches where you're going to cut out the bear. So it's important to know how wide this area is before you put in a name. All right, so the width of this area, so I'm going to go from his little armpit to his little armpit, and look, it's not quite 2 inches, but you do have over, looks like over 1.5 inches, almost 1.75 inches. So 1.75 is pushing it. It's pushing it for a name size. All right, so when you come up here and you go to put in a name, so let's add, say her last name, her first name has 2 E's at the end. So let's go into adjust, layout, and now look, 1.65. So her name with 2 E's on the end will just barely fit, because you remember it's 1.75 that is the absolute limit, and you really don't want to go too terribly close to that. All right, so we know that that's going to fit. So that's a good rule of thumb if you want to customize your bear with a name in the hoop. Now the other cool thing about doing it this way is once you add the name, you can go back out and say we want to put, we'll go small, and say we want to put that her date of birth. So at that instance, we want to go, let's see, how do we do our numbers? We go all the way over, and then, so let's say she was born April, and then you go over some more and we'll do the slash, and then we'll go back and we'll say 3rd, go over, do the slash, go back and say 1/9. All right, so all of that fits. Whoops, didn't mean to hit that. So all of that fits for her date of birth. So let's go to adjust, layout, and there's her date. All right, it's little itty bitty so that it will fit on the bear. So we know that our space is 1.75. So look, we're within our measurement down here where it says 1.40. And do you remember how far down our name was? Our name was 0.04. So let's go down 2 clicks to 0.04. Now notice here, her date is 0.33 high. So we definitely need to go further down from that to avoid overlapping the embroidery with her name. So 0.04 isn't going to work. So we want to go down significantly more than the 0.33 that we know the height is. All right, so there's some measurement and some math involved in that you guys know I don't do math very well. So you want to pay attention to the height of how her name was spelled out and the position of it, but definitely 0.33 or even more will be below her name, and the date can be done after that. Then once you're done with the date, you can back out of it, and then you can do the next stat. So maybe it's 5 pounds 4 ounces, whatever the case may be, but you always want to keep in mind the measurement from here to here and not get too terribly close to the bear's sides, so that the embroidery doesn't get cut off when you're trimming around the outline of the bear. So that's how you can customize this bear strictly with the machine itself without having embroidery software. So let's get our little fella cut out. So we're going to take him out of the hoop because our embroidery is done. And I'm going to take the tearaway off of the back. Now, it can be a little difficult to get around these strings. So if you want to, you can trim those out of the way. If you want to, you don't absolutely have to. It can make it somewhat easier, but there are quite a few jump strings that you will want to trim if you're going that route. And we're going to take all of this off as much as possible, because the less bulk that you have inside this bear, the easier it's going to be to turn him inside out, because it is a bit of a feat to turn such a small space inside out. I am warning you ahead of time, but once it's done, it is super duper cute. All right, so let us finish tearing all of this away. And the one other thing that I neglected in the beginning to mention, although we were talking about what it takes to get started on this pattern, the materials and whatnot, but to finish this bear now, we want to have needle and thread so that we can stitch him closed. And we want to have needle and thread and something else that my mind just drew a blank. What else do we want to have? Needle and thread to close him, and stuffing to stuff our bear with. So as you can see, there's a lot of, like I said, pinching and grasping. So keep that in mind if you have arthritis problems such as myself. All right, I'm gonna trim that off. And so now we're going to cut around our bear. Now, you don't want to cut up in this area, okay? You want to kind of leave a tab there, a little bit of a tab. So I cut up to the side of the leg and leave that area hanging down. Now, although I'm cutting on this side, we're going to flip him over, and then we're going to finish off cutting from this side. All right, so as you see, I left this tab hanging down, and that's going to help us, whoops, that's going to help us get him stuffed and actually turned inside out, then stuffed. Okay, so I'm trimming around his little legs, or little leg. And around the first paw. And the cool thing, the way she has this design stitched, even if you get close and you cut around or cut too close to the zigzags, you're not cutting into that main border, which keeps him stitched pretty closed. So I thought that was a neat way to finish off his stitching. All right, and now we're coming in for the home stretch around the other paw, and now around his leg. All right, how cute. Okay, so here is our bear, and now we need to turn him inside out. This is a feat. I am going to be completely clear with you on that. So what I ended up doing was I got a screwdriver. This one came with my embroidery machine, the big one. So that's what I was using to turn him inside out. Now, I normally have a inside out tool, which is what this is. You can purchase this at Joann's Fabrics or any of your other craft stores. I believe they also sell this at Walmart in the sewing section. If you have one, there's a hook on the end that allows you to grasp the fabric and hook into it. So what you would do is reach up into something that you want to turn, and then you would use the hook to pierce the fabric and then pull him through, which I tried to do that, but because the opening is so extremely small, that was difficult. But I did try it with a thicker fabric, so maybe with a thinner one it'll work better, but my fear was tearing the fabric. So let's see. You can also use the screwdriver to push the fabric through the hole as well. If I can't get this to pull through, yeah, no, I don't want to tear him, so I'm not going to use this. That flannel is so soft. So what I pretty much did was use the tabs to hold him open basically, and then just pick an area right here towards the bottom and push the fabric through. And fortunately my tummy works as a nice shelf to be able to help push this through as well. Now again, flannel is a gentle soft fabric that stretches and easy to poke holes through, so just be gentle as you're putting him through. Whoops, see, you got to be really careful trying to get this thing going. But once we get him started turning inside out, then you pretty much have won the battle. So again, let me get more fabric to push through here. This is the hardest part of this entire pattern. Were it not for this, it wouldn't be difficult at all. And of course the larger sizes are much easier to turn because the hole is bigger for those. So there we go. We got some of that fabric able to push it through, as you can see. And so what I generally do is just continue to force, after constantly picking up the fabric, the tool, constantly force fabric up through while holding on to the tabs that we left behind. And just be careful with those because I ripped one bare a little bit, holding on too tight to the tabs and trying to force that fabric through as well. So, and then it also helps to relieve the pressure of the fabric to keep it from being so bunched up, just to pull some of that loose and pull it apart a little bit. All right, and once we open that up some, then we'll go back to shoving the bear through that little hole. All right, so this is the thing with 4x4. You can do quite a few projects, but you have to keep in mind that the projects are a little smaller than a lot of the larger things. So because it's smaller, we have to work a little bit harder to get our projects looking super cute. But again, once you get it started and get your patterns done, then it really turns out nice. All right, so this is a tight area in here. There we go. We got all of him shoved in there. So again, relieve some of this pressure of the fabric by pulling it apart as much as possible. And as you see, the name has come out and exposed itself. So we're going to shove a little bit more. Matter of fact, we'll go ahead and poke his legs out. And again, you want to be somewhat gentle but forceful at the same time to make sure that the leg pops all the way out. All right, so we have both his legs. So now we want to get the head and the arms out. There we go. Here we are. So now let's get his ears. Look at the little face. So we'll get his ears pushed out. There's one ear. And now we'll push out the other. There's the other ear. And now we need his arms. All right. There's one paw. And there's the other. And here's our bear with the name customized on the front. All right, so now we want to stuff the bear. So what I did was I went and raided an outdoor pillow that I had, because I had some stuffing and can't find it right now to save my life. So in order to go ahead and get the video done, I just raided an outdoor pillow. This is not ideal stuffing material for a kid's toy, or even for this, even though it's indoor outdoor fabric. I'm sorry, indoor outdoor stuffing. This really is not what we want for our bear. So again, just as it was in trying to turn him inside out, you're trying to stuff that same little bitty hole. So we want to get this stuffing in, and the tabs help hold the hole open so that we can get this stuffing in. And I just push it in with my finger. Sometimes I'll use the same tool to push this in, but because I'm using the indoor outdoor fabric, it's so much slicker than your regular stuffing, so the tool doesn't really help a whole lot. So we're going to stuff. And again, this part of the project is, you know, the most tedious. So turning him inside out and then getting him stuffed. Stuffing is easier than turning him inside out, but it's still tedious a little bit. So the embroidery is the super easy part. So I'm going to use this a little bit and see if we can't get this stuffed faster. And I could definitely see filling him easier with maybe the little styrofoam beads that sometimes people put in stuffing that are like in Beanie Babies or something like that. I could definitely see how that would go a lot faster and a lot easier. But this is what I had. Okay. All right, so we have some stuffing in him. So I'm gonna break some of that off, and we're going to shove stuffing up in the upper extremities of our bear. And now that we have our bear, for the most part, stuffed, hands are getting sore, so we're gonna stop right there. We can go ahead and cut off that extra tab and then push in the fabric. And now what we'll do is hand stitch this bear closed. All right, so I have my needle and thread right here already ready. So if you are familiar with how to stitch stuffed animals clothes, there's usually a ladder stitch that closes these up. I have not been able to do a successful ladder stitch because I very rarely hand sew. So what I'm going to do is just do a just a basic in out type stitch. I don't know the name of it right now, but that's what we're going to do to close this bear. So there's a number of ways that it could be done. We could use a really small set of stitch witchery. You guys know I'm very fond of stitch witchery. I'll take stitch witchery to close up a project in a heartbeat, as long as it is heat resistant, because you do have to iron the area closed to melt the stitch witchery to get the glue to activate. However, with this bear, he's so little, I just figure a few hand stitches would be good enough to get him whipped closed. And we are almost done, so I'm going to finish him off right now. And there we are. So here is our bear. Now this one we customize with the name on the machine. All right, so here is that one customized with the name on the machine, and here is one with the name customized on Sew It Pro. I was able to put which is hard to see because of the white thread, but I was able to put 8 pounds 7 ounces November 25th 2018 with the baby's name up above it. So this is something, this is an example of how you can actually customize these little guys and give it as a little novelty gift to a new baby, or this could very easily be a cat toy, all right, or a little dog toy. Dogs usually tear these up, so wouldn't be too quick to give it to a dog, but you can stuff this with catnip, give it to a cat. And again, this is just as easy to customize on the 4x4 embroidery machine as it is to customize on a larger machine by using Sew It Pro. So there's a couple of ways you can get these little guys done. Again, this is a 4x4 project. I do want to let you know, she does, when you purchase the pattern, it comes in other sizes as well. So more than just 4x4 is what you'll get. So if right now all you have is a 4x4, well, eventually when you're able to upgrade after selling so many of these, then you can go with the larger bear. And this one would be the 5x7 bear, and how large he is. But if you do happen to have a larger embroidery machine with the larger hoop, this is the size of our largest bear. Okay, so this guy is pretty big, and once we stuff him, as you can see, he'll be a really significant size, and he has a whole lot more chest room to put the entire amount of the baby stats right here on his chest, which will be a lot more visible than it would be on the smaller bear. But as I showed you, you can still see it on the smaller bear, you know. So this is really cute, a nice little addition. You can put a jingly bell or something of that magnitude in it that will draw the baby's attention, or some crinkly paper, whichever way you want to go. But it's a fun little project. Again, the embroidery part is not difficult at all. Thank you for joining me today in making our 4x4 in the hoop stuffed teddy bears. I look forward to seeing pictures of the bears that you make, and I will have a link in the description below of the Etsy shop where I purchased these little guys, and you can go get the pattern for yourself. As I mentioned, she also has an owl, a bunny, rabbit, and a cat that is just as cute and 4x4 friendly. Well, the others, the bunny, rabbit, I would leave for the larger sizes, but the other three guys you could definitely complete on your 4x4 machine. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch our videos, and until the next time we see you, we hope you have happy embroidering.